welcome to the Saving with Steve show, where we talk about the ins and outs of money, pretty much everything under the sun that relates to you having a happier, healthier relationship with money. My name is Steve Sexton. I want to thank you for joining us. You know what? I appreciate you sharing this with your friends, your family, your associates. We've expanded throughout the United States. We're international, so we're very, very happy with that. Last week, we had Shannon Dentiste educate us on how to eat healthy on a budget. Okay, we had a large number of people providing wonderful feedback on that episode. If you missed Shannon Dentiste on how to eat healthy on a budget, just go to savingwithsteve.us and look for episode 85. You can see all other 85 episodes there. They're there for you. You can get guest gifts, see background information, the whole shot. I'm going to be talking on how to achieve a happy retirement. So let's go do that before we jump in with Dr. Joan Rosenburg. And you know what? She's got this wonderful book called 90 Seconds to a Life You Love, how to master your difficult feeling to cultivate lasting confidence, resilience, authenticity. You know what? I can't wait for her to be in the show, but let's go ahead and move forward to how to achieve a happy retirement. Now, this is important because, you know what? I work with people all the time, specializing in helping people prepare financially for retirement. And here's some practical tips I'd like to share with you that I've shared with my clients. You know what? More financially secure you are in retirement, the more stress-free your retirement years will be. If you've taken the steps to prepare yourself financially for retirement, this means you've saved enough during your working years to continue in your golden years. Start saving as early as possible and aim to have your mortgage fully paid off before you retire. If you're able to diversify the sources of your retirement income, even better. This could be from investments, rental properties, pensions, Social Security, and obviously more. When it comes to investing, think of your golden years as a time to invest for income, not growth, which can be risky for your finances in retirement. And we've seen that in the last few months where people are like, hey, I've lost 30%. How am I going to be able to retire? Do I have to go back to work? You don't want that stress. Lastly, it's important to regularly check in on your finances in retirement to ensure everything's on track. Next, prioritize your health. Health problems in old age will hinder your ability to enjoy your retirement. So caring for your body through proper nutrition, fitness, good sleep, and regular nutrition or doctor visits is even more important during this time. Focus on as much as you can on preventative care. It's much easier to prevent an illness than treat it. As part of a retirement financial plan, you should budget enough money for wellness, extra doctor visits, just in case. Create a daily routine and stick to it. You know, it can be difficult to transition from work at a 9-to-5 job, majority of your lives, and suddenly have a lot of free time. I mean, my dad dealt with this when he retired at the age of 56. I mean, he went from working 12, 15 hours a day to what does he do? Key here is create a daily routine, helps you to ground you in retirement, help you prevent feelings of helplessness, boredom, or unproductivity. Remember, you now have the privilege to create an identity and schedule outside of work the benefits that you're interested in. Take advantage of it, whether it's making more time for friendships, hobbies you already love, personal wellness. Make room in your routine for things that energize you and bring you joy. That said, don't be afraid to try new things. Just as important as establishing a routine is trying new things in retirement. As we get older, it's easier to lose initiative and feel too comfortable in our comfort zone, which can lead to lethargy and some elderly people feelings of depression and anxiety, whether it's learning a new skill, travel somewhere new, meeting new people, try new things, help to keep your mind and spirit sharp in his old age. I have clients that are in their 90s, and since they retired, they look at doing something new each and every month. Sometimes it becomes a routine, a new hobby, a new friend for them, but they go look at things like Groupon and other activity-oriented apps or websites because you know what? It's made a difference. It kept them active, kept them healthy. And like I said, they're 96 years old. You can too. So you know what? With that, we're going to move on to our next segment. For our guests today, I want you to think about this. How would you like a roadmap for understanding how to spot, understand your emotions, identify, overcome the distractions, release your anxiety, resolve faulty thinking, and negative self-talk. Speak your truth, move through grief, up-level your confidence and resilience. You know what? All these can become possible when you consciously ride through your emotional wave and gain the confidence that you can handle whatever comes your way. Our guest, Dr. Joan Rosenburg, cutting-edge psychologist, public speaker, has been seen on CNN, American Morning Show, and many other TV and radio appearances. She is a professor at my alma mater, Pepperdine University, and has written a groundbreaking international best-selling book, 90 Seconds to a Life You Love: How to Master Your Difficult Feelings to Cultivate Lasting Confidence, Resilience, and Authenticity. Dr. Rosenberg, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a treat.
You know what? We're very, very, very excited to have you here today. I just want you to know that.
Awesome.
I know there's a number of my wife's friends that are actually watching and listening right now, and they'll probably listen to this a few times. By the way, my wife did steal your book from me, so I actually, so just saying, didn't get to read the whole thing.
Oh, no, look, it's good. That's good news to my ears. So,
so let's see. Now you've had 40 years as a psychologist, and I'm just curious, what got you into psychology?
what got me into psychology? Probably a natural drift. It was a natural kind of lean into for me. The truth is, I actually wanted to be an outward bound instructor. And if you're familiar with Outward Bound is the outdoor experiential program that uses nature as a medium for personal growth. So even in my teens, I was interested in personal growth. And so instead of, that never really occurred for me in terms of, I mean, I did programs of that, but I didn't ever go to do that full time. So the way I like to look at it is, instead of going outward bound, I went inward bound. And but the tendency or the trend for me was always toward a very, very strong interest in personal growth.
Oh, well, that's cool. You know, it sounds like you've had that passion since you were young, so that's wonderful. Now, you know what? The book is great. I mean, obviously I haven't read it, but my wife's enthralled in it, so it's got to be great because she doesn't read stuff and continue to read it. And, you know, one of the things I wanted to do just really quick is there's hundreds of reviews on your book on Amazon. And you know what? One of them, it just says the book helps you, number one, realize when you're running away from your true emotions, face your difficult emotions, riding the wave, and choose to live a life full of meaning and intention. And one of the things that I really got me is, this happens to me sometimes. And the person says, I never would have bought the book with this title if someone didn't recommend it to me. I'm so glad I bought it. I dealt with anxiety and depression for as long as I can remember. Rooting those issues in my inability to deal with unpleasant emotions was something I never considered. I've been practicing her reset for the past month, and my life has changed. And the last one says, those simple truths are the most profound. When you are in unpleasant emotions that can feel overwhelming, recognize that they only last 90 seconds makes them feel manageable. This book's make me more brave, more empathetic by reframing what and so many of us try to avoid. And
Wow.
And just those references are big because people are getting a lot out of this, and many people are dealing with anxiety, depression, all sorts of emotions they just don't know how to deal with. And a lot of it just comes from people, not speaking their truth. And you know what, I'd like you to talk about the signs that, that people should come to realize when they're not speaking their truth. Could you start there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want you to understand that difficulty speaking up is not a speaking problem. Difficulty speaking up is a difficulty with unpleasant feeling problem. So it really is, again, centered in the unpleasant feelings that I talk about. So think of, I name a variety of different kinds of things, and I have a list of that in the book. So some of them include things like you're concerned that people are going to laugh at you, so you don't speak up, or you hold your opinion back. You have things kind of swirling in your head, but you don't say anything. You might have the experience of feeling trapped. And really what I like to think of in terms of this idea of feeling trapped is that it's not that you're trapped in a situation, it's that more often than not, it's your words are trapped in you. And so that's part of a sign that you're not speaking up. you don't ask for help. Or let's see, that when you start to speak up, you get into this kind of what a friend of mine calls kind of that sweaty experience, right? The sweaty conversation, that your heart races, your breathing is more shallow. You start to get anxious, what people would describe as anxious and panicky. So that's happening when you try to speak up, or you don't share things that are important. The things that are important to you, you don't share those with others. So there's a whole wide array of things that we do to not speak up. And that those are some of that's just like 5 or 6 different things right there in terms of signals to me that someone is having difficulty saying what they want to say.
That's interesting because, you know what, regardless of whether you're like in high school, all the way through, you know what, through your whole life, or, you know, I just recognize times where I did those things.
Of course, it's totally human stuff to do.
Well, you know, I kind of quit. I'm just thinking to myself, I say, you know what, when my wife was young with the 2 kids, she was at a mom's group. And the funny thing about it is one of the kids' mom was talking about, you know, why her kid was eating, you know, was freaked out that their kids was something wrong with her kid because she was eating crayons. And the other moms go, oh no, mine does that too. And they're like, oh, good. You know? So I was just thinking of this, like, there's so many people listening going, oh, wow, somebody gets me. I've been through that too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what I want people to understand is that, and the reason I'm able to describe it is because so many people do it. Right. So, you know, or somebody might give you a compliment and you go, no, yeah, they want to tell you what a kind of cool or neat person that you are. And you go, no, 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 no. And have the thought in your head, if you really knew me, you'd never say that. Right. That's another example that you're not speaking up. You're not being authentic and letting people know who you really are. So that those are, like I said, I think there's 17 or 18 different things that I list off that people can identify. To your point, they can identify themselves as having this kind of a challenge.
Wow. I just thought of that one too.
It's common.
Yeah, I bet, you know, that happens to a lot of people. We all, because, you know what, ever since I was little, I had that issue when people gave me a compliment. You're diagnosing me. Oh my gosh. I'm just kidding.
No, I'm off duty in that way. We're good.
I'm just kidding. Now, one of the things that you talk about in your book are new strategies for moving through and beyond grief, particularly disguised grief.
Right.
Could you help us understand what disguised grief is?
Absolutely. What I found as a psychologist, what I found is that as I did the work of psychotherapy with clients, that more often than not, if they stayed with me long term, I began to understand that psychotherapy was a grieving process. And that there were a lot of things that kind of went unnoticed. So the way to understand disguised grief is that it's the gap, it's the grief, if you will, about the gap between what we dreamed of, what we wanted, what we desired, what we needed, and what we really got. So in that is disguised grief. But so a couple different things to kind of parse out here. I think of grief, generally speaking, as comprised of at least four feelings. And the four feelings are sadness, helplessness, anger, and disappointment. So if someone is experiencing any one of those individually or some combination collectively, they're grieving. Again, we don't necessarily think of sadness as, oh, I'm grieving, or disappointment as I'm grieving, or anger as I'm grieving, but that's the way I think of it. That some measure of that is grief. Or we can call it grief. And the disguised grief for me is known in two, I would say, kind of two major ways. One is what I call through grief signal words. So what are grief signal words? They're words like bitterness, holding grudges, desire for revenge, jealousy, envy, pessimism, cynicism, sarcasm sometimes is, longstanding hurts, envy, jealousy. I think I'm going to mention that. I mean, it's a long list. And so that underneath those words, so think of jealousy as disguised grief, because underneath it is probably some sadness, helplessness, anger, or disappointment. Or the same with bitterness or resentment. Underneath is one or more of those four feelings.
So it's almost like, and I'm just paraphrasing, tell me if I get this wrong, but I work with somebody who lost their husband early.
Right.
And you know what? I would say for 6-7 years of me knowing her, I think she was still upset at him for passing away. And the fact that she didn't used to handle the business, he handled it all, and it all got dumped on her. She's upset at that as well. And because she had to jump right into dealing with all that, I don't think she ever got to deal with his passing. And is that, because
absolutely,
all those things,
lots of grief there.
And that could happen if you had a situation where, you got taken advantage of, whether it be financially or somewhere else, or even when you're little, maybe you got passed over for that promotion, or somebody submarined you at the office, and you still got to work there, but you got to deal with all that stuff.
Right. Correct. Yes. So that's one way of knowing. So that the grief signal words is one way of knowing. To what you're starting to describe, I also use 5 other categories to help someone understand disguised grief. So the category, for me, it's the categories of grieving over what you got and didn't deserve. So that might be the bad stuff. That might be growing up in a chaotic or an abusive home or a neglectful home. It's grieving over what you deserved and didn't get. So that might be missing the nurturance, the ongoing praise, the compliments, the fair-mindedness, all that kind of stuff, support, and nobody showing up for your meets or your competitions, or right. It's grieving over what never was, meaning kind of the facts and circumstances of your early life, and in this case, probably missed opportunities. It's grieving over what is not now. Same thing, facts and circumstances of your current life. And then the last one is grieving over what may never be. So that the person who lost her husband early probably had many layers of grief.
Wow. I'm just here taking it all in, thinking, wow.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to have to take a quick break here. Got to pay some bills. We're going to be right back with Dr. Rosenberg. We're going to be talking to her about a Rosenberg reset. And you're going to want to stick around for that, because there's some wonderful tools that you can take to heart. And then we're going to talk about how you can connect with Dr. Rosenberg as well as obtain her book. So stick with us. We're going to be right back with more Saving with Steve. That was wonderful.
Good. Thank you.
It wasn't too technical, easy to understand. That was wonderful.
Good.
So our break is only about 22 seconds.
Awesome.
Cameron, we just finished, that was actually the third segment. We're going to be moving into the second segment. We're going to be moving into the third segment, which is the second segment with Dr. Rosenberg. Let's see, here we go. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, welcome back to the Saving with Steve show, where we talk about the ins and outs of money. Pretty much everything on the sun relates to you having a happier, healthier relationship with money. Hey, I want to encourage you to connect with our affiliates, UK Health Radio, BBS Radio, AMFM 247, Talk Radio New York City, as well as AMFM 360 TV, which is our new connection with us. You know what? They're all dedicated to helping you live a life of financial and personal freedom. If you'd like to get, go to see more episodes, you can go to savingwithsteve.us, or if you want to just follow us on Facebook, go to Saving with Steve Sexton, and we'll look forward to seeing you there. Now, we have more with Dr. Joan Rosenburg. We've been talking about, the 90 seconds. I'm sorry. I just lost my brain pace. Cameron, you're going to need to edit that out, and I need to add this back in here. So we're going to be talking about her best-selling book, 90 Seconds to a Life You Love, How to Master Your Difficult Feelings to Cultivate Lasting Confidence, Resilience, and Authenticity. Now, Dr. Rosenberg has a process she's used called the Rosenberg reset. Okay, it's been trademarked. It's wonderful. You know, Dr. Rosenberg, could you tell us a little bit about it and then go into the 5 key steps for unleashing your confidence?
Sure, absolutely. Think of the Rosenberg reset as the way to lean into unpleasant or difficult feelings. And the reset involves kind of think of it as a formula: 1 choice, 8 feelings, 90 seconds. And the 1 choice has to do with being aware of, as opposed to avoiding your experience or avoiding your feelings. So, and most people handle pleasant feelings well. It's the unpleasant ones that they don't. So my focus is predominantly on the unpleasant feelings. So the key here is that I want somebody to be as aware of or in touch with as much of their moment-to-moment experience as possible, as opposed to distracting, like through social media, food, sex, porn, shopping, having feelings about having feelings, anxiety, harsh self-criticism. The list, I think I have 35 different ways that we distract. So if you thought the other list was common, this one.
So when people don't deal with these feelings,
Yeah,
and obviously they avoid them for a long time, these do end up creating health issues and other manifestations. Is that correct?
absolutely true. I watch people get backaches, stomach aches, different kinds of pains. They develop addictive problems like substance use or shopping or gambling or you name it. It can go on. And so, yes, and so that it creates a number of other psychological problems. They increase the anxiety, and then they also might come up with bodily complaints as opposed to dealing with the emotions.
Oh, wow. That's really good to know, because, you know, there's so many people doing the same thing. I love this. So,
Right. So the 1 choice is leaning into the feeling, choosing into awareness as opposed to avoidance. I want you to be aware and in touch with what's going on. The second is the 8 feelings. Now, the 8 feelings I talk about all the time are sadness, shame, helplessness, anger, vulnerability, embarrassment, disappointment, and frustration. And the most common question I get is like, why these 8? And for me, it's because these 8 feelings represent the kind of most common everyday spontaneous reactions to things not turning out the way we want or the way we believe they need to turn out. So it's this unpleasant or undesired emotional outcome. So we don't want, and that's what we would also identify as being hurt.
mhm.
So, you know, if somebody hurt me, then I'm left feeling sad or disappointed or whatever it is. So it's really the everydayness of these feelings is why I chose them. And then, excuse me, the last part is the 90 seconds piece, and that's really the method, if you will, for leaning in. So and what that involves is an understanding that we're one interconnected whole. Our brain is always feeding information to our body. Our body is always feeding information to our brain. So we need to keep in mind that those aren't disparate things, or connected. The second is to understand that most of us come to know what we feel emotionally through bodily sensation. So think about, for instance, feeling embarrassed and you have that heat sensation in your face. Somebody might see you red and flushed, but you're feeling heat. Heat is the bodily sensation. And we can identify that for lots of other feelings too. So maybe sadness feels like a heaviness in the chest. But you have to stop and think about kind of how, what, and where you might experience feelings for yourself, what those bodily sensations are that help you know what you're feeling. But the key that this all turned on, there's 2 things, is realizing that it wasn't that we didn't want to feel the whole range of what we felt. What I realized is that we didn't want to feel the bodily sensation that helped us know what we were feeling emotionally. And so that when people started to ignore unpleasant feelings or to shut down on them or distract from them, what they were trying to distract from was the bodily sensation that helped them know the feeling. So the last part of it then, the 90 seconds part, is to understand that in order to lean into unpleasant feelings, or pleasant ones for that matter too, It means you're going to be riding short-lived bodily sensation waves. So Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor talked about that when a feeling gets triggered, that there's this rush of biochemicals into the body, into the bloodstream that actually activate the bodily sensations we've been talking about. And that those same biochemicals flush out of the bloodstream in roughly an upper limit of 90 seconds. So any given bodily sensation wave or any given feeling, emotional feeling then, is going to last to roughly an upper limit of 90 seconds. And most people will go, well, I can handle 90 seconds. Great. Now you can lean into your feelings. My emphasis then is kind of to think about if we look at the arc then of the Rosenberg reset, it's that if you can ride one or more, and I'll emphasize the more, one or more short-lived bodily sensation waves of one or more of 8 unpleasant feelings, you can go pursue anything you want in life.
Well, you know what, I think one of the big keys there is just to understand it only lasts for a short period of time.
That's it.
And for those people are there going, hey, when am I going to get over this? And they just keep it up in their head. And now there's a process where, hey, you know what, this is going to happen. I understand it's going to happen, but I understand it's only going to last this long.
Right.
I can deal with that.
Right.
Wow. That's that's eye-opening.
It is eye-opening. It's like once you realize that, you can then lean into unpleasant feelings. Now, there's a whole thing around what people will describe as lingering feelings too, where they've lasted for decades. Well, actually, the feelings haven't lasted for decades. You were thinking or remembering certain experiences that keep on activating that same loop is what is part of what's driving.
So that's the triggers that they have.
Yeah, so I think I've identified at this point, I talk about 3 in the book, but I think I've identified at least 5 ways where we have the experience of lingering feelings.
Wow. Now, we got about a minute and a half of our time left.
Okay.
Your book is currently on Amazon. I know it's an international best-selling book. It's on Kindle, it's on hardback. And people can go there and get it. If somebody would like to reach out to you,
yep,
how do they go about doing that?
Well, the best thing is probably go to my website, drjoanrosenburg.com. And then there's a contact sheet there so that they can reach out to me via that. So, or if they want to follow me on Instagram and direct message me on Instagram, most of what on all the social media platforms, it's pretty much Dr. Joan Rosenburg. So you can find that on Instagram or Twitter or any of those kinds of places, and especially Instagram would probably get to me. So
now, just one last thing, it just popped into my head. Would you recommend somebody who's dealing with emotions like this to, almost as a daily routine or rhythm, like in the morning, do some sort of a 90-second reset, or just do that when the emotion comes upon them?
I would do it when you notice the reaction. It doesn't have to be done separately. Just do it when you notice the reaction. And the key here would be to breathe into it. So you're noticing you're reacting to something happened. You got disappointed. You notice you're disappointed. Normally you back away. Instead, notice the disappointment, breathe into it. So you will actually allow yourself to experience the feeling, and just a slow, deep breathing, not fast breathing. And then see if you can notice what the feeling is and what is attached to. And then if you have a little bit more time, you can actually go, gee, is there any pattern to this? What am I reacting to? What triggered me? And how do I want to make use of what I'm feeling? But do it when it happens. You don't have to necessarily practice it ahead of time.
Dr. Rosenberg, I want to thank you for joining us today. And for everybody listening, you want to go out to Amazon, the book, 90 Seconds to a Life You Love, How to Master Your Difficult Feelings to Cultivate Lasting Confidence, Resilience, and Authenticity. You definitely want to get the book. It'll make a difference in your life. So Dr. Rosenberg, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your 40 years worth of experience. And I wish you, safety, healthiness, and prosperity. Thanks for joining us today.
It's an honor. Thank you.
All righty. And let's see. Cameron, I'm just completing the outro here. You know what? Dr. Rosenberg was wonderful. Again, I want to encourage you to reach out, go to Amazon, go to wherever you can, take a look at her book, 90 Seconds to a Life You Love, How to Master the Difficult Feelings to Cultivating Lasting Confidence, Resilience, and Authenticity. Next week, we have Nicole Shaver. She's a mixologist. She's going to talk to us about how to mix those wonderful cocktails. We're going to have some fun next week. I want to look forward to seeing you next week right here on Saving with Steve. Stay safe, stay healthy. Bye-bye.